First, we have our freshwater inlet at the top of the manifold here. This is where you need to plumb in your fresh water source. It must be on the top pipe, otherwise the system doesn't work properly. Next, we have our flow meter. This measures the flow of the water through the system and reports that back to our Connect controller. Then we have our pressure gauge so that you can monitor the water pressure flowing through this pipe at any time. The injection manifold is responsible for injecting each part of your nutrients that you'll be using. This is the meeting point of your fresh water and your nutrient solutions. We have our blend tank. The blend tank's responsible for homogenizing your recipe and making sure it's fully blended before it exits the system. This looks like a filter housing because it is one, but there's no filter inside here. It's simply a hollow chamber with a pipe inside to allow that mixture to blend around before it is released from the system and is measured. Then we have our sensor loop here. We have our pH probe and our EC probe that are constantly measuring the parameters of your recipe and reporting that back to the controller. The sensor loop has a series of ball valves in it. You'll notice these are in the fully open position, but this valve should be turned at about a 45-degree angle. The reason for that is most of the recipe needs to flow past this loop, but we need a little bit of that recipe to be directed down and past these probes. We don't want the full recipe, the full flow, to hit these probes because they'll measure inaccurately if they're in the full flow of water. We also have a brass spigot here that allows you to take samples off the system while you're running a recipe, or it's also useful when you need to calibrate your pH probe. You can simply close this valve, and then drain the water out of the system through this spigot here. Finally, we have the outlet of our manifold, which will be plumbed to your solenoid valves that'll distribute the recipe either to a series of batch tanks, or if you're using direct inject, it will flow that recipe directly to each one of your rooms in the facility. Next, we have our H.E. Anderson injectors. They're powered by compressed air, so that's why we have a regulator, pressure gauge, and air chuck on this side that we'll hook up later. And we also have an isolation valve here to cut off airflow if we need to. If we need to service the pumps for some reason, we can just cut the air supply here. We typically use a range of 4 different H.E. Anderson injectors, all the way from the smallest being an A3 that's typically used for small additives like pH up, pH down, or silica. P1s and P2 pumps are typically used for your base nutrients, A, B, bloom, you name it. And then H4 pumps are just the larger version of the P1 and P2. If you have very large injection needs, then we'll use these pumps to accommodate that. And lastly, the Growlink Connect controller, which is responsible for managing the system and storing all of your data. That concludes every part of your NDK. Join us in the next series where we'll go through calibration and testing of your system.